Whether it's a heart attack, an injury, or a woman in labor, access to emergency medical service transport in Idaho is not a guarantee. Idaho law does not designate EMS as an essential service, and funding for the service varies widely county by county. A report from the Office of Performance Evaluations released in 2021 presented stark issues, particularly in the areas that rely on volunteers.
As the economy changes in McCall and people are busier with their own lives and professional jobs, they have less time to give to the fire district.
I think every agency in rural Idaho has the same sufferings that we do for staffing, recruitment, and retention is crazy hard, especially in these volunteer agencies. We're asking these people to leave their job to come help us on a call. And it could be a critical call where you're expected to do adequate chest compressions and maintain an open airway all the way to the hospital while leaving your place of employment that feeds your family.
Up in Idaho County, the area is geographically challenging, even if it isn't the most densely populated. Kamiah, for example, has a large area it needs to cover for EMS services.
It's a time killer, essentially. On our worst winter days, our calls might take an average of about 2.5 to 3 hours. One area that we cover takes us about 40 minutes to get to, has a number of residents living in that area, and then to get to the hospital is another 30 to 40 minutes, so you're looking at almost an hour and a half.
The shortage of available staff also puts stress on having 2 EMTs in one ambulance.
I know of an area that recently had a call where they didn't have enough EMTs to go on the call, so they grabbed the city maintenance worker to drive the ambulance, and then the EMT took care of it. A year and a half ago, when I got here, we were in that same boat. I actually grabbed the city clerk to drive the ambulance to the call so we could handle the call, and then I took care of the patient in the back. That puts a lot of pressure on those folks who normally don't do that.
The availability of an EMT in Idaho often comes down to money. McCall does have a fire district used to collect a tax on top of its contract with Valley County for providing EMS. Some of that tax revenue is used for EMS services.
We receive about $165,000 in transport revenue to provide EMS. The total cost of providing one ambulance 24/7 costs about $1.2 million.
State revenue for EMS is minimal.
Valley County receives funding from license plate registrations. The population in Valley County is about 11,000. On average, the county collects about just a little over $100 a year from vehicle registration fees for EMS.
Because many homes in McCall are second homes for recreationists, those residents don't often register their vehicles in Valley County. Therefore, DeYoung's crew doesn't see the profits of their fees. The city of Riggins, in May of 2022, approved an ambulance district garnering 73% of voter support. Until then, local volunteer EMS received no government funding for its services. Meanwhile, Riggins EMS only receives funding for reimbursement from patient billing, including Medicaid, Medicare, and private insurance.
There's an Idaho code that says we cannot petition to levy property the same year as the election was held. So we're not going to be able to receive revenue from the ambulance district until January of 2024.
Further north, some leaders are not confident that another taxing district could be established by voters in the area.
We receive no major government funding. We do not have an ambulance taxing district. We don't have an ambulance district. The only funding Kamiah Fire Rescue receives for its ambulance services is from our transports. And that is a situation that's hard in general, just because of the Medicaid and Medicare reimbursement fees. We receive very, very small amount of the total cost of that operational response. When we tie in Medicaid, in the nutshell, we receive pennies on the dollars to support the full-time staff, to support the volunteers.
The possibility of not receiving additional funding is frustrating to some responders.
I once heard an elected official say, when you come to my county, you have to expect your house probably burned to the ground before the fire department gets there, and you shouldn't expect to be taken to the hospital in a timely manner. I disagree with that statement. Absolutely 100% disagree with it. And it's not because I'm in this role, it's because as public servants, We want to help people. And even the elected official who made those comments should want to help his or her constituents have survivability of life.
Rural areas also face challenges with recreators. While thousands may visit the area, those people don't contribute to the property taxes that help pay for emergency medical services.
If you compared us to a county with 11,000 that is not a tourist area, I would guesstimate that we run about 75% more calls than those counties.
Riggins EMS is definitely a unique agency in the state of Idaho because of our destination, our vacation destination. People come into Riggins. For instance, when you go to the grocery store on the weekend, you can't even recognize who you're shopping with just because they're all out-of-towners. And then also our steep mountains, as you can see, it's like this all around us. So our geographical location is a lot more unique than other locations.
For many rural areas, such as Riggins, there is no local hospital, and transporting patients can be one of the biggest problems.
So we have 45 minutes of lights on the highway with cars needing to pull over. So it's a nerve-wracking job with them in the front, just making sure that we're getting to the hospital safe with our amount of traffic. We only have one highway through Riggins.
I feel like Idaho EMS and fire is already underfunded, and the state legislature just seems intent every year to cut funding even more. And we're at a point where, with the House Bill 389 and the cap on levy rates, with annexation not increasing your ability to collect taxes, makes it impossible mathematically for us to save for a second station, and it delays hiring full-time firefighter EMTs by 3 to 5 years.
There is an EMS Sustainability Task Force with invested stakeholders who will continue to meet and plan to propose a resolution during the next legislative session. If it passes, the task force will continue to plan and request that EMS be deemed an essential service during the 2024 legislative session and develop a funding formula for the state.